Tom Clark's Main Event is a Boink Studios production. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook at Boink Studios, and check us out on boinkstudios.com, where you can see all of our projects, past, present, and future. And now, on with the show.
This is Daddy's show. Step off.
Hey, what is up? Welcome to the program, folks. Thank you for tuning in. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Tom Clark, and you are listening to Tom Clark's Main Event. This is episode number 75 of the podcast, and if you're joining us today for the very first time, we will bid you welcome. If you're coming back for a repeat visit, we say, hey, thanks for checking back in with us. And to all those involved, we will extend to you, as always, the customary laurel and a hearty handshake. Thanks for listening. Thanks for reading. Thanks for supporting. And hey, thanks for always being there, Doc. Episode number 75. For those of you keeping count out there in podcast land, you know that the main event did not bring you an episode in the month of May. I hang my head in shame. Don't hate on me too much. Please, no bad language. Let's all remember that we're adults here for the most part. No need to finger point. Or anything worse than that. Yeah, man, May was a busy month for yours truly. A lot going on the website, of course. Boink Studios is always pretty active, doing our thing. You know what I mean? But a lot of things going on for me personally as well. So, yeah, time has been tight, and like I said before, the month of May was a bit hectic. So, we're going to attempt to try to get a little bit more of a regular schedule here. We've never exactly been very punctual here on the show, but that's kind of how we are, man. That's how we roll. But anyway, enough of the apologies. How are we doing today, man? How's everyone doing out there? This is my show. Glad you are with us. Thank you so much for being here. This is the main event, of course. A lot of stuff happened since the last time we talked, right? A lot of things went down. A lot of things that we didn't see coming. Some things we did see coming. We've had an event or two since the last time we talked. We have a new WWE champion. His name is Jinder Mahal. No one saw that coming, right? Well, some of us might have. But we're not going to talk about that. I can't say that I saw it immediately, but I did think that the moment that Jinder was made the new number one contender, I said, well, he's winning the title. I just had that feeling. And that was before I read anything about WWE's expansion into India or anything like that. I just had, I don't know, just something about it. It felt different, felt spontaneous. And rushed. Some people would perhaps say it felt rushed. I don't know. But like I said, man, a lot's happened since the last time we spoke. But there's been a lot of things in the news lately. And we're going to cover some other things besides the main topic. We're going to touch on some other things happening right now in the world of professional wrestling. But the biggest thing on my mind right now, the thing that has really captured the attention of fans and, you know, a lot of the boys and girls alike in the business, well, let's go ahead and talk about it. The main event this time out is Diving Days. And if you're a bit lost on what that means, it's sort of a play on words, Dancing Days by Led Zeppelin. And, you know, one of my favorite songs by that group. And you know, if you don't like Zeppelin, you got a hole in your soul, man. There's just something wrong with you. You're un-American is what you are. If you're not in love with a British rock band. Not a British rock band. The British rock band. Of course, yours truly is into the Beatles, and they just recently had the free Sirius XM preview like a week or so, and the new Beatles channel is on there, by the way. And now the preview is over, so I'm distraught. I've been sitting in the corner of the room for days now crying, and it's been tough. But It is what it is, man. But yeah, so it's a play on words, and a lot of it. Well, I'll just go ahead and say it. A lot of it we've been talking about for a long time. We've been talking about it for a long time here on the show. A lot of us as writers, a lot of us as fans have always had a problem with it. What's the it, you ask? Well, it's very simple, man. The penchant that guys have today in today's business for, and as Randy Orton and Rip Rogers and other people have been talking about a lot lately, diving. Dive here, dive there, dive everywhere. And, the lack of selling in the business has been a major, major point of contention for yours truly. The death of kayfabe has been a big deal. We covered that in one of the episodes here on the show. It's in the archives. Please go check it out. And, just a lot of things that folks just now seem to be getting wise to or want to talk about. We've been talking about them for a long time. And that's the good thing. And I'm not just saying this in terms of the writers and, guys like myself who are out there, but, wrestling fans who, just want more from the business, who expect more from the business. We've been talking about stuff like this for a long time. The death of kayfabe in particular. And, it never goes away, right? It never ends. And just when you think it couldn't get any worse, it gets worse. But what are we talking about in terms of today's product? I think that in and of itself is exactly what we're trying to get to here today. Today's product, how things have changed. And I think we all expected, any of us who have been fans for 20 plus years or more, we knew that an evolution was going to come. You would have to be extremely short-sighted to not understand that an evolution was coming in the business. I mean, how could you not know that? It couldn't remain the way it had been for 50 years or whatever it was. It couldn't stay that way forever. I mean, eventually things had to change. I don't think any of us saw the evolution or de-evolution, perhaps, if you could call it that, to the degree that we've seen. I think that is something different. That's something that's been unpredictable and been very disappointing. And what we're looking at, folks, is a difference in culture. If you really narrow it down, and people talk about the millennials and the new generation of people, and the younger generation, guys in their 20s and early to mid 20s and so on. My generation was Generation X. And, we had our own fair share of criticisms, as every generation in this country has. And a lot of it's been extremely negative. But it is what it is. But I think a lot of what has been said about today's generation has really come into play in the business. And, we often talk about how the business reflects the world around it, much in the same way that primetime television reflects the world around it, that kind of thing. Because whatever's happening in the world ends up in the ring. Whatever's happening in the world ends up on TV. And that's just reality. That's the nature of the beast. That's how things work. And, for anyone out there that doesn't believe that, all you got to do is take a look at today's current product in pro wrestling. I mean, you've got heels like the Bullet Club in Japan, who, and Ring of Honor, of course, who are, they come to the ring and they're giving the Too Sweet sign to fans, tapping the wolf pack on their fingers and fingertips and stuff. And I'm like, you're heels. What are you doing? You're killing me. You've got heels in WWE who, have a match, and then 2 days later they're on the same podcast, so they're posing together on Instagram, laughing and smiling. And yes, Chris Jericho, I'm talking about you. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to pick on him. I love Jericho. He's a master. He's one of the best ever, in my opinion. But the carelessness that's displayed at times by the guys that, it almost seems like we care more about it as fans than they do as the guys in the ring, which is a very odd thing. And we've talked about this on the show before, but it's almost like, we sit back and we get real wrapped up in what the business should be. We get real wrapped up in how things should sound, how they should look, how the guys should carry themselves in and out of the ring, actually. And we do that to the point where sometimes we can't even enjoy the product because it inhibits us from doing so. And I think once it gets that far, it's a bit too far. I still enjoy watching the product no matter what the company is I'm watching at the time, or at least I try to. And even if it's a rough show with some rough spots in it, I still manage to pull something out that I enjoyed. And I've always been like that. I'll continue to be like that. And that's just how it is. But it's nitpicking. I get it. But today's generation, I just, and we're talking about the business of pro wrestling. We're not going to get all political on you and give you any kind of social commentary. It's whatever. I've probably done enough of that already. But, what it comes down to for me is in the business. And you've got guys that didn't grow up with the territory system. I'm not talking about so much in the ring. I'm talking about watching it. I mean, sure, the dads did. They've seen tapes. They've seen YouTube. They've seen the network. But they didn't grow up watching the territories. A good number of them didn't. You know what I mean? And a good number of these guys grew up WWE fans. Do you get it? Not fans of Jim Crockett. Not fans of the AWA. Not fans of World Class, the Von Erichs. Not fans of Georgia Championship Wrestling or Championship Wrestling from Florida. Not fans of Harley Race. None of that. They grew up WWE fans or WWF fans. And that's a significant difference. You see guys today and say, who are your influences? Well, Macho Man Randy Savage and, Hulk Hogan. And I'm like, okay. Who else you got? What about Dusty Rhodes? I saw him on YouTube. His sons are Goldust and Cody. I mean, come on, man. And the term student of the game gets thrown around a bit too much. Some of my contemporaries, some of my peers in the pro wrestling business, the pro wrestling writer business, let me correct myself there, the pro wrestling journalist profession, I guess. A lot of those guys, not a lot, some of them have like in their Twitter bio, student of the game. I'm a student of the game. They've never been in the ring, but they're a student of the game. So that kind of rhetoric is exactly what it is. It's rhetoric, and it's thrown around way too much, and it's a bit ridiculous. And that's exactly what it is rhetoric, and it means nothing. But for those guys who are actually in the business, the ones actually in the ring, risking their neck, night in, night out, student of the game is a big deal. It means something. It means that they're familiar not just with World Wrestling Entertainment, Vince McMahon and his family and his company. They know all brands of wrestling all throughout the years. They watch the Horsemen versus Dusty. They watched the Expresses clash, the Rock and Rolls and the Midnights. They watched Nikita Koloff versus Magnum TA. Didn't mean they had to be alive during that time. I mean, obviously, you don't have to be alive during a certain era to enjoy a certain type of wrestling or wrestling company or music or movies or whatever the case may be. No one's saying that. But they've studied tape. Just as an NFL player and a rookie coming into the NFL would study tape and learn the game. Because, you earn your stripes by getting on the field. You learn by wrestling other guys. But at the same time, you also have to know what you're getting into, who came before you, and how you can assimilate into the product, into the brand, to make yourself successful. And you're crazy if you don't study tape, because you have to assimilate, but at the same time you have to stand out. So what can you do to stand out? So there's a lot of guys out there who what I consider to be student of the game. Triple H has that's been used as not as a moniker, but it's been said about him. It was said about Shawn Michaels, Steve Austin. The students of the game, guys that studied their craft and honed their skills to become what they eventually became. Now, let me backtrack for a second. Just because we say that a good number of today's generation of pro wrestlers didn't grow up with the territory system does not mean that they should be criticized or punished or any of their accomplishments trivialized because they didn't grow up fans of that era. Perfectly okay. Doesn't mean they have nothing to contribute. But what my fear, as a guy that did grow up with the territories, as a guy that did grow up watching some of the greatest of all time in Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling and all the aforementioned territories, Ric Flair during his prime, not Ric Flair of Evolution, Ric Flair during his prime. And Ric Flair had a lot of great moments in WWE, a lot of fun times watching that guy. I mean, it's true. I was in Charlotte the night when he made the speech, "I will never retire." And sent chills down my spine, still does. That crowd was in a fever pitch when he said that. I mean, Rick's greatest of all time. I don't care what anyone says. He's the GOAT, baby. That's it. So, again, I'm not suggesting that you're at a disadvantage, but maybe you are, because do you care enough? I'm talking about the guys and gals in the business, the women too, okay? Do you care enough about your chosen profession to actually know what it is that you're looking at? Because here's the problem. When your idols and are the guys in WWE, and you have no one else, okay? You're familiar with the history, but you don't really know the history. You haven't taken the time to educate yourself. You know what I mean? You don't have an older friend that's turned you on to it, or your dad or your mom or your uncle or whoever it is that you might know. When all you know is WWE, then all you know is how that company does business. You know what I mean? And I think there's a danger in that, personally. Now, again, you can't really criticize today's generation too much for not having been around, but you need to criticize if they're not educated themselves. Now, I've had this discussion several times in the past in terms of the acrobatics. That's a big chunk of what we're talking about here, man. The thrust of this argument, of this debate, of this conversation is the acrobatic nature of the business now. Jim Cornette recently made a comment on Table for Three. He said it on his podcast numerous times. And honestly, he's echoed the sentiments that guys like myself have been writing for years, that pro wrestling is more of a daredevil stunt show. It's acrobatics now. And it all began, as many negative things in the business, not just in WWE, but in the business as a whole, came from the moment that Vince McMahon went on television and told the entire world that the business is a work. And that was the moment that a lot of things began going wrong. And we are seeing X number of years later, we are seeing what happened, the long-lasting ramifications of that announcement, the long-lasting impact on the business itself, not just Vince McMahon's company, but on everything associated with pro wrestling. From the oldest promotions, including WWE, to a promotion that could start today. Very humble beginnings. They're all affected by that announcement, in which Vince told the world, let the cat out of the bag, and made everyone wise to how the business worked. That it was all rigged to begin with. And that changed everything. And to me, that is to blame for today's current product. Now, you look at me and you say, well, Tom, what about the Ruthless Aggression era? I get it. What about the Attitude Era that came after that? Sure. But I will answer that with this. Again, you have to remember who we're talking about here. How many 20-year veterans are still there? Kane, Mark Henry, Chris Jericho. Randy's coming up on that, I'm sure. If he's not already there. When did Randy debut? I'm wanting to say 2002, 2001, I believe. Veterans, okay? Guys that, if they didn't grow up inside the territory system, grew up close to it because the territory system was still going on at that time. Do you see what I mean? But the acrobatic nature, off topic there, sorry. But the acrobatic nature of the business, as we said before, the moment that Vince McMahon told the world that the business is not a shoot, was the moment that the business stopped being about competitive matches. Because once the crowd knows that no one is really trying to win a match, then it doesn't matter anymore. So what matters? What matters? If the crowd no longer believes that this guy hates that guy, and that this guy wants to win that belt, and he's trying to win that belt, and everything he does in the match is in an effort to win that belt, okay? When they no longer believe that because they've been made wise to it, then what's left? There's only one thing that can be left, and that's the acrobatics of the match. Suddenly you have shifted the focus from winning and losing, from the competition of the match itself. You've shifted the focus from all that to the acrobatic nature. These guys are performing for you. Oh, and I've written that before. It's one of those things where you're trying to, during the course of a 1,000-word column, you don't want to just say win the match 100 different times in 100 different places. I mean, you can't just always call the guy a wrestler. I mean, eventually he's a talent. He's a superstar. He's a star. he's a worker, he's a performer. It's one of those words that just kind of pops in there. Was never used back during the day, right? Because back in the day, guys weren't looked at as being performers, even though that's exactly what they were. It just wasn't said like that. Okay, but that's how everything has shifted. The focus has now went from the supposed competitive nature of matches and actually wanting to and attempting to win matches. It's all changed to the acrobatic nature of the guys. Oh, they're in the best shape ever. Man, they're better athletes than what we saw in the 80s. And man, they could put on a good show. And man, yeah, but in man, they're not selling, okay? That is one of the problems with the crap that we're seeing today from Ricochet, Will Ospreay, and a select few others, in which the whole thing is about, flips, and just like the title of this podcast, man, dive. I highly suggest you go look up Rip Rogers' Twitter and follow this guy, because he's a veteran, he's well respected, and man, he's got a few opinions. You should go read them. And Randy Orton, the same way, man. So if you don't like what you're reading, take note. You may not like it. However, the truth needs to be told. The truth was told. It's the same truth, the same reality that we've been talking about for years. Again, as pro wrestling fans, as pro wrestling writers, as guys that we sat back and we love the business, but we see, and I don't want to say false is too strong of a word, but we see things, and they can't be denied. And that's one of the things that just can't be denied. And again, you got guys like Ricochet and Ospreay, and go back and watch their match, because, they're running past each other. I mean, at one point, Ricochet does that thing where Ospreay's going to go hit the ropes, and Ricochet pats him on the back and like as if to say, okay, you go ahead, you run this way, and I'll wait on you. What happened to actually trying to win the match? Okay? Steve Austin has said before that even though it is a work, and even though fans are wise to how the business goes, even though fans know that you're not actually trying to win the match, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't treat it like a shoot. That's his deal, is that when I was in the business, I treated it like a shoot. I treated it like I was actually trying to win the match. That's the problem that I see with today's industry. I don't see enough guys trying to do that. And the criticisms go to how guys work a match, how they're diving, how they're just, and again, the bad part about the whole thing is the constant no selling. You take a finisher, you bump off finisher, you jump right back up, as if nothing happened. You give the other guy your signature, your finisher, he bumps, he gets right back up. And, at some point, the casual fan, the casual guy or gal that maybe doesn't watch full time, maybe he's only seen the business a handful of times, says, how do you get back up from that? I mean, that looked like it hurt, man. Because the best finishers, the best signature moves, the best submissions, the best moves, period. Any type of move you're talking about, from a rear chin lock to the stone cold stunner, the best moves in the history of the business are the ones that look like they legit did some serious damage. Those are the best moves, when in reality the other guy's perfectly fine. Those are the best moves. Okay? And when you lose that because you're too busy trying to jump back up immediately after you bump, so you can give the other guy your finisher, your signature, whatever the case may be, then you've lost something. The impact is lessened to a great degree. And it's just, I can't with this. Do you know what I mean? It's infuriating at times. Let me tell you what I have right now. On my laptop, I have the Super Juniors tournament in New Japan. The Bullet Club's in the ring. Kenny Omega is one of them. Okay? Now, the hate between Kenny Omega and Jim Cornette is palpable. Jim Cornette hates this guy, okay? But at the same time, a lot of guys do, because and the guys in the business can say they respect him, they love him. Like WWE, guys at WWE are like, oh yeah, I'd love to see Kenny there. I'd love to have him on board. But the fact is, Kenny's part of the problem, guys. He's part of the problem. Dude comes out with a broom. With a broom. Now, I can get past cheeseball gimmicks. I can get past, things like that, that's fine. But when I see guys who continue to, they refuse to sell, you know what I mean? That's the biggest problem I have with anyone in the business today. It drives me freaking insane. I can't stand it. You're killing it for me. You're killing it for everybody else that's watching at home or in the crowd. Do you know what I mean? Selling is what they do. Selling is what the business is all about. It's at the foundation, man. As my chair creaks. I need a new chair. I need to invest. I've spent money hand over fist lately on several different items that I may or may not have truly needed. But a chair, alas, was not one of them. So I do need one. Maybe I'll start a Patreon site so to get some funds. I'll put it on my Amazon wish list. Go click it. By the way, the nerve of some people. Do you know what I mean? I have a wish list. Go buy stuff because I'm pretty. Come on, dude. Seriously, get a life. How to get off on that? The chair. That's right. So, yeah, I mean, he's part of the problem. Kenny Omega's part of the problem. And to segue into New Japan for a moment, if we can here. New Japan, a lot of fans believe, is indeed a massive part of the problem. That the whole idea of strong style. Now, this is one of the issues I had when Nakamura was brought to the States and before. In New Japan, he got away with it because everyone's doing that kind of stuff in New Japan. But when you call someone the king of strong style, what's the definition of strong style? Oh, you hit a little bit harder. You're making a little bit more impact. Strong style is, you don't hold back. Isn't that what pro wrestling is supposed to be? Isn't the entire business of pro wrestling supposed to be strong style? Aren't guys actually trying to hurt each other and to hit each other as hard as they can and trying to win matches? Do you see where I'm going with that, man? That's the problem. That's the problem, dude. You've lost sight of that. We as fans, those guys as wrestlers, I was about to call them performers. Did you catch that? Part of the problem. But they lost sight of that. Why? Because Vince McMahon, thank you very much, told the whole freaking world that it's all a work. And that's where the problems began for the business. It didn't begin because people were becoming wise to it. It began because because Vince and family validated and verified to the world that, yeah, it is indeed a work. And once that happens, game over. Okay? It has forever been affected. It has forever been changed. It has become something that today's business, today's pro wrestling, is a hybrid of physical acrobatics of the stunt show with a little bit of pro wrestling thrown in. And I have a massive problem with that. Here's what I believe to be true, and you might say I'm crazy. I don't believe. And I know it's doom and gloom here, guys, so forgive me for a moment, but I don't believe that the business can survive in the current state that it's in. That's me. And I think if it does, it will no longer be pro wrestling one day. It'll be something else. This could all lead to another way of entertainment, another form, some kind of weird mix of MMA and scripted fights and things like that. I mean, that's exactly what I'm thinking it will be, and that it won't even be called pro wrestling. You might think I'm crazy. You might think I've lost my mind, but I just think about it for a moment. Think about the changes that have happened in the past, 16 years since Vince made the announcement, 17 years, whatever it's been now. Maybe it's been longer than that. 99, perhaps. I mean, think about that for a moment. And look how far we've come. WWE put a guy on top whose ring work was questionable at best, who looked like he could wrestle, but once they got him in the top spot, he kind of quit doing it. And over the years, he's had some hype. Not some. The dude's had a lifetime, a career's worth of high-profile matches in which he's received a ton of praise for his role in those matches. And, of course, we're talking about John Cena. But look at that. And that that is indicative of where the business has come today. That's where we're at. When we put someone on top that back in the 80s would have probably crashed and burned, and John, student of the game, like we said before, John is a definite student of the game. This is not the crap on John Cena show. There's plenty of those shows out there, but we're not going to do that here, man. I'm just trying to prove a point to you. How a lot of things that would never have happened in the 60s, 70s, 80s, or 90s even, to a large degree, happened because Vince McMahon told the world that it's all work. And I don't believe, even as shocking as it was at the moment, for me and a lot of other people do, because it was indeed a very shocking moment, I don't believe that any of us could have even imagined what lay ahead after that announcement. Because it was weird things. It was weird times. And I think we're still feeling the brunt of that. And I don't believe, honestly, that we've seen the worst of it. How's that for negativity? We've not seen the worst of it. Isn't that terrible? You tune in hoping to have some fun, and what happens? I crap all over your day. I'm sorry, man. I apologize, but I got to tell the truth. This is what I believe to be true. I think today's business will not last in the form that it's in. And if it does exist 10, 20 years from now, then we're going to be looking at a pro wrestling business that's no longer pro wrestling. It's all stunt show. Selling might even be taken out of it. It could be like, medieval times or, Knights. What's the Night show? Do you guys know what I'm talking about? Knight's Quest or something like that. I've been to both of them. They're fun. But that's kind of what I'm going for. It's so heavily choreographed that you don't even care about the selling anymore. That it gets to the point where you won't even care. Because all that will matter is, Will Ospreay and Ricochet running past each other in the ring. Running past each other in the ring. Running past each other in the ring. I want you to think about that for a second. Think of a pro wrestling match as a legitimate pro wrestling match. As a legitimate match. With each guy trying to win the match. So in the middle of a fight, in the middle of a match, you're going to just allow your opponent to run right past you. Why don't you hit him on the way? Do something. You know what I mean? Push him down. Breathe on him. Just, but you pat him on the back and send him on his way so he can hit the ropes and come back and hit you? Are you serious? And see, that's the problem. That's the problem. And it's only getting worse. And, things like that absolutely drive me insane. And again, what am I watching right now? Right now, on my laptop, I'm seeing the Bullet Club, and they're working like a spot match in Super Juniors tournament. They're working a spot match where they're catering to the fans. They're heels. Do you see where I'm going with this, man? And guys like Ricochet came out on Twitter or wherever it was and said, I just wish that, pro wrestling can be a lot of different things to a lot of different people. Why can't it be this? Because it's not pro wrestling, doofus. The guy's got a world of talent, but, you're not Evel Knievel. This is not the circus. You didn't join up in Ringling Brothers, despite, if he ends up in WWE one day, maybe that is Ringling Brothers, but you know what I mean? But that's what we're looking at, and that's what they believe, because again, they've been raised on WWE. They've been raised on that style, and that's what they know. They haven't educated themselves past that company or past the 10 to 15 year time span after the WCW shut down. They've not done that, and that's what the problem is right now. So, a big problem in today's business, and I think it's only going to get worse before it gets better, if it even does get better. And that's kind of where I'm going with this right now. And the whole notion that pro wrestling can't be this sort of hybrid, that can't be evolved to this point. And again, guys like Ricochet don't get it. They don't get the complaint. But my problem is when you do a chain wrestling and you hit like 6 moves in a row, well, if you hit 3, your opponent hit 3, where's the selling? Do you see what I'm saying? Where's the selling? Here's the funny part to all this, man. While guys like myself are doing podcasts and writing columns and appearing on shows and complaining about this has been the case for 15 years now since Vince's announcement. Dude, you know what kind of a big deal that is? And we're still talking about it. And I've got a massive problem with it, and I don't think it's going to get any better. You know what I mean? Now, having said that, let's talk about the good parts, the good points, because there are some amazing athletes in WWE. Shinsuke Nakamura is one of them, as we talked about before, the king of strong style. In other words, I'm actually trying to hit you. But aren't you all supposed to be hitting each other? Do you see what I'm saying? That's how far down the ladder it's come, man. And it's pathetic, in my opinion. But yeah, that's what we're talking about. And again, talking about the dive situation and all that. So right now on boinkstudios.com, it's our website. Yay! I feel like I got to do that every time I say the words boinkstudios.com. I got to do a little cheer. Hey, man, I need a pep rally for the website. And right now, I'm the only cheerleader around. But I don't look good in a short skirt. I'm not going to tell you how I know that. It's none of your business. But anyway, on boinkstudios.com, you can check out my latest for the website, Dive, today's pro wrestling stunt show. And it's essentially this podcast sort of, in column format. And that's basically what it is. And here's where we're going with this, man. We're talking about all the talk right now, again, as we said when the program started, about diving and about the acrobatics and the stunt show. And Rip Rogers, when he decided to stir the pot on Twitter, and a lot of the guys that work in the fashion in which Rip works had a problem with it. Pardon me. I don't often go for refreshment during a show, but I'm quite parched. So it's a sip of water and we shall continue. But yeah, man, Rip Rogers, as we said before, a respected veteran, a trusted veteran. A lot of these guys that work the style that he's complaining about, that a lot of us are complaining about, they got very highly upset over what Rip said on Twitter, and they had to bash him and attack him verbally and, say all kinds of crazy things to him and to complain about it and whatnot. But what strikes me as interesting about the whole little deal, that in any other major sport, you got a veteran like Rip, respected veteran, he would have been listened to, not, admonished for his opinion. How many NFL or NBA rookies would have ever publicly disrespect or laugh at Joe Montana, Michael Jordan, Jerry Rice, Magic Johnson? They wouldn't. Do you see what I'm saying? Because those guys came before you did. They've already done it all. They're legends. They're Hall of Famers or future Hall of Famers. Who are you to sit there and criticize them and to fire back? Rip spoke his mind. He said what he said, and he believed in everything he said. He still does, and he should, because he's 100% right. It's a stunt show. It's not pro wrestling anymore. Sorry. Pro wrestling is a different animal. It always has been. It's not a major sport, even though many feel it is. It's not true athletic competition, as we said before, though that can be debated in terms of how serious the guys in the ring are taking it. And plus, it is a competition, and in many ways, you are trying to win. And the only way to win WWE is to get over. And the only way to get over is get on TV and you make the connection. If you make a big enough connection, you start drawing some serious cash, then guess what? What happens after that? You become one of the top guys. There you are. And like I said, it's a different animal. But it went from a business of pro wrestling to a business of tough guys to a business of daredevils. That's what happened after the announcement was made. I can't stress to you how important. I can't stress to you enough how important what Vince McMahon did to the business, to the world of professional wrestling, to the industry that made him a king, that he overtook, that he controls now, lock, stock, and barrel pretty much. And what it did to him, what it did to his company, it completely and forever changed it. And it's to the point where it's a bit ridiculous. You can watch certain matches now. They're so formulaic, you can see it from start to finish. Some of us have seen it like that for years. When I got into the business and I started realizing how matches work, the guys are calling spots. Spot 1, spot 2. And you learn your spots and you're there at the right time. Your head is just in the right place for the kick. Your foot is just the right place to get tripped. Whatever it is that you plan for your match that particular night. And, again, when you get wise to it, you understand. But the difference between getting wise to the business and going for the crap that you're seeing today, a lot of us don't want that crap. Do you know what I mean? A lot of us don't want anything to do with it. We want the actual honest-to-God pro wrestling to make a comeback. Now, we know that's not going to happen, full force the way it did in the territory days. We know that's not possible. That's not reality. Probably never will be. But what we are saying is don't advertise to us that it's not real, that it's choreographed. And that's what happens with the stunt shows. I'll give you a prime example. Sami Zayn. I've criticized this guy on the show before. I stick to my guns. It's not personal. It never has been, never will be. I have a massive problem with Sami Zayn. I think he's one of the most unsafe talents in that company. Not toward anyone else, but to himself. And I think that he's going to end up hurting himself again soon, in my opinion. I hope I'm wrong. I don't wish harm on him. Don't misunderstand me here, people. Take it easy. But what does bother me about him is that he puts himself in danger. He puts himself at risk every time he decides to flip-flop and fly over the top rope. That's a big deal. I mean, you look at me and you say, Tom, Jeff Hardy's done it for years. Yeah, and I'm sure Jeff Hardy, I'm sure Jeff Hardy's knees hurt quite a bit. Do you know what I mean? But the difference between Jeff and a lot of other guys is Jeff sold. Jeff still sells. I mean, he was one of the few guys, let's say you'd have a Hell in a Cell pay-per-view on a Sunday night, right, of course. The Monday after on Raw, Jeff Hardy's the only guy selling the Hell in a Cell match. Or not Extreme Rules. Well, Extreme Rules, sure. Elimination Chamber, right? Jeff was the only guy selling the match. He'd come down to the ramp to the ring, and he's holding his ribs. He's walking slower. He's grimacing on his face like, ooh. That's selling, man. That's how you're supposed to do it. And that's how he did it, and that's how he still does it. So don't talk to me about Jeff Hardy started the whole thing. Jeff Hardy didn't start guys not selling. Guys decided to do that for themselves so they could fit another 25 moves before the commercial hits. That's what I have a problem with. And again, I'm one of those guys that's been writing about it for years. I've always had a problem with it. It's just not getting attention because someone is, on Twitter, when you get the wrestling community involved with actual wrestlers saying it becomes a much different thing. And then yours truly goes back and does a podcast to follow up. And then after that, reminds you that he's already talked about it before. Not to be all like that, not to be smug or know-it-all, but hey, I'm just saying, right? So any fan today that's old enough to remember the glory days of Jim Crockett can see the difference. Like we said before, it's a massive difference. Not necessarily about the audience believing it's real or phony. It's about the men and women involved taking more pride in themselves and their craft to make it look good. That's what we're talking about. How much do you care about how good you look in the ring? Because I can tell you right now, there's so many moments over the years when I was actually in the business, guys would come back through the curtain to the dressing room. The first thing out of their mouth, how'd that look? Because we had monitors backstage. We're sitting there watching a lot of times. How'd that look? Did it look good? Oh my God, that's all that mattered. You know what I mean? Putting on a good show. Not how did it look good in terms of did I look good? The question was always, did it look good? The match. We built something. Me and my opponent tonight, we built something from scratch. We had a story to tell. We told it. We built what we had to build in the ring. Then it was time to leave. We got out of there. I mean, that's some intense stuff, man. I mean, that's big time stuff. I love that. You know what I mean? But today's crop of guys are like, okay, how many flips can we fit in for the commercial? It's the truth, man. Don't lie. You know I'm right. But the high-risk moves and necessary bumps are footnotes in a book whose real substance lies in the chapter. Okay? Because as we've said before here on the show, pro wrestling needs to be more about the steak and less about the sizzle. The sizzle's great, but the sizzle doesn't fill you up, and you forget about the sizzle after too long. Once you have the meat, that's what you remember. That's what WWE needs to get back to. Probably won't. But that's what it's become. That's what pro wrestling has become. It's a shame. It's a shame it's become like that. But much in the same way history looks back at one-hit wonders in pop music for a 30-minute nostalgia show, much of today's current pro wrestling stars will be remembered in the same retro vein. Now, let me put this out there to you. Let's say that Kenny Omega comes to WWE. A lot of people thought he was going to this past year. It didn't happen. Let's say that he does. What do you think is going to happen? Do you think he's going to go down as the next Stone Cold Steve Austin? I don't believe so. I think that Kenny has showed us everything he's capable of. And I think that what Kenny's best entails is a goofy, laid-back attitude about how pro wrestling should look. I'm not suggesting he's an idiot here, folks. Take it easy. I'm saying I respectfully disagree with his opinion. But that's what we're talking about. And it's frustrating. It's frustrating as a fan, dude. I'm sorry to get off topic there with you, but it's just extremely frustrating to sit back and to see what's happened and how the business has changed and what it's become now. Extremely frustrating because I want it to get back to the way it used to be. I think it's dangerous. It's more dangerous now. If you don't believe that, my God, if you don't believe that, look at the rash of injuries that company alone has seen in the past 18 months. It's been insane. Look what happened to Daniel Bryan. Now, you can look at me and say, well, Tom, that's how Daniel worked. WWE didn't tell him to turn his volume up. He did it on his own. I get that. But if Daniel had been smart, if he had slowed down when he came back the last time, he would still be wrestling today. But he only has one gear, and it's 100 miles an hour. That's all he knows. So, I'm not suggesting he's part of the problem, mind you. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that today's current crop is a heck of a lot different. And here it is. Who are you going to remember 20 years from now? I think a guy like Kenny Omega. Are we even going to remember him? Are we going to remember Ricochet or Will Ospreay? I don't believe we're going to. I think their names will come up and go, oh yeah, that match in New Japan where no one sold stuff. Here's my problem: is that Kenny Omega took on Okada. Now Okada is an excellent hand. Okada at any given time, on any given day of the week, is the best in the world. And I truly feel that way. I truly believe that. Okada is extremely good at what he does. No nonsense, no joking around, no antics or clown makeup and big top. Ringling Brothers, man. That's what Kenny Omega is, Ricochet, Ospreay, a lot of other guys. Sami Zayn's got a lot of it in him too. I would have thought by now that would have broke him of it, but no. Got into a debate the other day, and with a guy named Chris that I went to high school with, but a long time ago. Don't ask how long. I'm not going to tell you. And Chris is like, well, this is what the WWE wants. This is the acrobatic style they want. I disagree with that. I disagree with that because none of those guys have belts right now. Do you see what I'm saying? They don't have belts. So I don't think that's what WWE wants. I think when WWE gets these guys signed, they hope to get them assimilate into the company and get them firmly established on the WWE style. We've heard the words WWE style for years. It's not a work. That's an actual thing, man. Trying to get Nakamura to follow along now, and he has. A lot of his kicks against Dolph Ziggler Backlash didn't look that good. And I don't think I've ever said about Nakamura that a kick didn't look good. First of all, he can take your freaking head off with one of those boots, man. That's good stuff, right? But, I'm not saying it didn't look good. Okay, so here's something that's and switching gears again, but it's in my head and it just popped in there and it's kind of been nagging at me for a while. Here's what I believe to be true. It's a chicken and egg situation. Wrestlers, superstars, whatever you want to call them, talents, whatever it is, believe they have to make an impact and get noticed. So they throw everything they have into even the shortest match. Their veterans, their peers, and perhaps even their bosses recoil in horror at the amount of unsafe risks being taken and lash out against them. But the crowds they took those unsafe risks in front of blow the roof off the building. Well, if you're one of those wrestlers, what are you going to do? You're going to keep doing it. It just invites even more of the same from those talents that are trying to get over. Soon the audience expects it and wants more. And when you don't deliver to them, they get ticked off at you. Do you see what I'm saying? But had the tone never been set to begin with, again, Vince McMahon telling the whole world, will today's audience truly be as jaded as it is now? WWE told the world that the business of work and that action can never be taken back. Fans have been talked down to, they've been mocked, and they've been ridiculed by the company and the superstars themselves. Why wouldn't they try to hijack a program? No one's listening anyway. Why not turn it all upside down? That's what we're talking about. That's the mindset of fans today. Never thought I'd see the time. Never thought I'd see the day in which I'd watch pro wrestling on my TV, and the people in the crowd care more about the hard camera. They care more about getting on TV themselves. They care more about drinking their beer, eating their popcorn than actually watching the match. They're sitting there chanting for CM Punk. Dude's been gone how long now? 4 years? And don't get me wrong, I love me some Punk. I do. Let it go, folks. Move on. It doesn't have to happen in Chicago. That crowd will chant whatever, especially if they get bored. And they get bored a lot, obviously, don't they? Doesn't that tell you something? Here's an idea. Go back to the wrestling. If you don't believe me, Tyler Bate. Think about this, man. And I want you to really think about it, okay? United Kingdom Championship match on NXT. Now, we knew these guys could work. We knew that. We know that the Brits have a passion for the business. They have a style that's all their own, yes? And a lot of it reminds me of the old school territory days. In as much as they sell, they actually have ring psychology. And that's exactly what we're talking about for Tyler Bate and Pete Dunne. That's what they have. They have natural chemistry together. They look amazing together. They put on one of the best matches. It's one of my candidates for early match of the year candidates, and I believe that. That's the truth, man. There's only been so many match of the year candidates, in my humble opinion, and I'm keeping track of them too, because a lot of times at the end of the year I'll go to write, a best of the year, whatever, and I've kind of forgotten. Tyler Bate versus Pete Dunne, UK Championship Tournament Finals, January 15th. Kicking off the year right. You know what I mean? AJ versus John Cena at the Royal Rumble, January 29th. Charlotte versus Bayley, WWE Raw, February 13th. The Authors of Pain versus DIY versus The Revival, WWE NXT TakeOver Orlando, April 1st. Seth Rollins versus Finn Balor versus The Miz, WWE Raw, May 1st. Tyler Bate versus Pete Dunne, NXT TakeOver Chicago, May 20th. AJ Styles versus Kevin Owens, WWE Backlash, May 21st. And one of my candidates for Match of the Year, all the way back from January 4th, Okada versus Kenny Omega at Wrestle Kingdom 11. Now, let me say this. Omega looked good that night. He did. Omega has the ability to wrestle, but he cares too much about being goofy, being stupid goofy, and it's all that he cares about, man. And it's gotten the best of him, in my opinion. It really has. And it's not working. Do you see what I'm saying? It's not working. And, again, it's just, I'm losing my voice here. That's late. I'm tired. But yeah, man, it's extremely frustrating. And it's just one of those things where you can sit back, you can lament the fact that kayfabe's dead. You can sit back and talk about how the business has changed for the worse, not the better. You can be upset about it all day long if you want to. Cool with me. You're not going to change anything. You're not going to change anything. You can write columns and podcasts about like I do, like I'm going to continue to do probably till I'm dead. And you're not going to change anything. But, you have to believe, and maybe this is just naivete on my part, I have to believe that if it's repeated long enough, often enough, that eventually these companies are going to start listening. Wouldn't that be nice? Guess what, man? We've just about come to the end of the show. God bless, that feels like it just flew by. Did it feel like that to you? Let me just tell you something, man. This topic's not going to go away. As long as you've got fans who care about the sport of pro wrestling, who care about actually watching the matches themselves, who love every second of the matches themselves, then it's never going to stop. The conversation's never going to end. You see what I'm saying? We need more Tyler Bate versus Pete Dunne. We need more of that. From the women, from the men, from tag team wrestling, from singles wrestling to six-man wrestling. We need more of that. Where they're actually trying to win the match. Didn't you feel as though they were actually trying to win the match? I mean, a lot of people picked Bate to retain the UK Championship. But honestly, as you're watching the match, you get the sensation, you get the feeling. These guys are actually trying to win the match. You see what I'm saying? You're able to forget for a moment that it's all choreographed to begin with. It's all predetermined for the most part. You forget about all that because you get lost in the emotion of the match, and it's how it's supposed to be. Pro wrestling at its finest is high drama. Can be Shakespeare. I'm dead serious about that, man. Some of the best storytelling that's ever been told in this country has been in a pro wrestling ring. And that's no exaggeration. I truly believe that. With all my heart, that's how I feel. We got to get back to that, man. Storytelling is the most important part of this business. Without storytelling, you lose the foundation of pro wrestling. We can't let that happen. WWE can't let that happen. These guys in the ring have got to be more responsible. Stop taking some unnecessary risks. Run the risk of hurting yourself, your opponent, or even the referee, honestly. But mostly yourself. And it's just too dangerous. I mean, these guys they have to want to have to need a long shelf life, as long as they can. But when I see guys that I believe are working unsafe because they're trying to pop the crowd instead of actually trying to win the match, they take a necessary risk to make it happen, those guys have lost focus, and that's a shame. And I hate it. I hate to end on negativity, man, but that's kind of how we ended up. Real quick before we get out of here, let's tell you a little bit about who we are and then we're going to hit the road. BoinkStudios.com is a website. And my name's Tom, of course, and I write for BleacherReport.com, Sportskeeda, and Camel Clutch blog. And I'm putting in a lot of content on BoinkStudios.com as well. We have two other podcasts. Our sister podcast, Tom Clark's 30-Minute Fun Show, and Tom and Kyle's Comedy Action Hour. Go check them out. They're available on iTunes, Google Play, and online. Check them out at BoinkStudios.com as well. If you want to drop us an email, BoinkStudios@yahoo.com. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook. We do our best to entertain as often as we possibly can and make it fun for you, the audience. So on a more serious note, man, I got to thank you guys. Tremendous big amount of thanks for the podcast, for downloading, for listening, for constantly emailing me and talking to me about what you'd like to see covered on the show. Those emails are going to be answered. I've answered a lot of them in short order. We got a lot more to talk about, a lot more shows to do. We're not giving up, man. We're going to keep on rolling as long as we humanly can. As long as I got a way to record it, we're going to have a show. So hope you've enjoyed this one. This has been fun for me, man. We're going to come back. Episode 75, this is a great big number for us. We're proud of this, but we're going to keep on trucking. We're heading to 100. Can't wait till 100 gets here. That's going to be a blast. We're going to have something really cool for 100. I'm already working on it right now, so there you go. Listen, man, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for being here. We appreciate everything we do. And we will see you next time on Tom Clark's Main Event.